Hi everyone, Natalie Jones, dietitian here. Today we're going to be talking about alcohol. So people that know me, clients that I've consulted with, know that I am super picky on the alcohol side of things. And the reason for that is that it's the one thing that makes a massive difference really quickly in terms of mood, motivation, quality of sleep, and definitely diet compliance and weight. So it's the one thing that even when people aren't drinking a lot, even when they're drinking within government guidelines of 14 units a week, for example, or they're maybe having a glass of wine a night, when they cut that out or when they reduce that significantly, they see a bigger weight loss than you really would be expected from the calories alone. So if we look at the calories in alcohol, we're looking at about 7 calories per gram. If you compare that to fat, so butter, oil, that kind of thing, that's more like 9 calories per gram. If we think of that, compare that to carbohydrate, it's more like 3 calories per gram. So alcohol itself is super high calorie, but if somebody's having maybe a glass of wine a night that's perhaps 200 calories for a kind of normal home poured glass, if we think of if they cut that out, really that calorie reduction alone shouldn't be enough to cause weight loss or significant weight loss, particularly in a week or two. So if we think about that 200 calorie reduction, when actually for a pound of fat a week loss, we're looking at nearer a 600 calorie reduction, we shouldn't really be seeing much. But I do often with people, even when they're having perfectly healthy limits of alcohol, and when they cut that down, it's not uncommon to see kind of 2 or 3 pound weight loss in that week. And that kind of experiment of doing a little week off alcohol to see how you feel, see how you sleep, see what your motivation's like, and see what your weight changes can be quite a useful little experiment for yourself. When we're thinking of that kind of reason why people might lose more than what's actually expected, some of that could be diet compliance. You know, we know that when you have alcohol, your blood sugar drops, you start feeling hungry, you feel like you haven't eaten. So if you think about the kind of things you might be consuming with alcohol, like crisps, salty snacks, that kind of thing, if you're not drinking the alcohol, you might not have the need for those things. It could be a similar thing to that. It could be a fluid retention thing. So we know that alcohol dehydrates, which makes you then retain fluid. So it's possible that weight on the scales can be a fluid loss as well. But if we're thinking about how to manage that side of things, and the alcohol, cutting alcohol down is a really big issue for most people who drink regularly. And this is even people that don't consider themselves dependent on alcohol. But when I suggest it to them, a lot of people see that as quite a difficult thing, you know, much more difficult than, say, cutting down on takeaways or other kind of things that we might be looking at kind of negotiating on for their diet. Alcohol can often seem like a really big sticking point. One thing that can be helpful is limiting frequency. So for people who are drinking every night, for example, looking at having some dry days, you know, some people have some dry weeks, but having that kind of limit and trying to get a kind of run of dry days can be quite helpful to kind of just reduce that habit. It can be easier for people to have none sometimes than just have less, because really after one glass, your motivation is down anyway. So the chance of that becoming 2 or 3 is quite high. The other things, sort of practical suggestions, things like alternating alcoholic with non-alcoholic drinks, diluting alcohol, having less amounts when you are, particularly for things like spirits, and filling it up more, but also planning ahead. So alcohol and social situations is tricky, but knowing when that's likely to happen, and maybe even looking at your week ahead and thinking, well, I'm having friends round on a Friday night, so can that adjust my habits earlier on in that week to see. But it is difficult. I think one thing to really kind of hammer home with this is to try having alcohol-free days, try having alcohol-free weeks, and see how you feel. A lot of people who think that there's no way they could stop alcohol and it would just make their life miserable if they're not losing weight. And it's particular for kind of older people. By older, I just mean kind of like post-menopause, really, like that kind of, for women anyway, that kind of time when it's much harder to lose weight. Even having that kind of week off, and go, I'm not going to have any alcohol for this week, and then just seeing what that is. Sometimes when people see that weight loss, it's enough to motivate and go, actually, do I need it as much? And kind of question that a little bit. So sometimes it's just about that kind of awareness. But alcohol is a real tricky one for people, and something that I kind of focus on quite a lot if people are drinking and trying to lose weight, because it does impact on so many areas of people's health and their life. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'll be back soon with more. Okay, bye.